Hello and welcome to the Halloween Horror Events podcast. I'm your host Phil, and you can see that Simon and Joe isn't here. Well, we're doing a pilot episode for something brand new. I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be called Remembering My First Halloween Horror Nights. So, what we're going to do is have guests on, people who are not part of the podcast. Sometimes it might be the podcast, people from anywhere, walks of life, coming on talking about their very first experience, the first time they went to Halloween Horror Nights. Now, I hope you enjoy this, and if you do and you would like to come on, there's plenty of ways to get in contact with us. Obviously, we've got Twitter X, Facebook, and Instagram. We're on there as HHE Pod. Now, if you're on TikTok, you can also get hold of us on there at HHE Pod 1, or if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below and we'll find a way of communicating with each other to get you on. Well, here we go then, people. We are on the pilot episodes as I try to figure out where to put my seat. It tells you how much a pilot is. And obviously, I couldn't do this on my own. So I've done it with a ex-podcast partner, a show that's going to get cancelled in real life. So I cancelled the podcast before the show got cancelled. Was it the Doctor Who
Hmm.
universe? Here he is, Craig Willicks.
The podcast isn't cancelled, it's just been rested. I'll come back in come back in another 10 years when Doctor Who starts again.
Becoming
So yeah,
popular.
yes. Hmm.
Well, you hope it comes popular. Don't mind me, people. I'm just trying to play with the camera a bit to get me a bit more centered because I've just realized that I'm there we go. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me moving about trying to figure it out. It's all new. I should know the setup because this is my setup, but I'm not doing great with it. So a little bit more zoom in. That'll do. There we go. So as I've alluded beforehand, as you know, for the little intro I did on my own, this is the Halloween Horror Event podcast. I am Phil, and this is the pilot episode for remembering my first Halloween Horror Nights. So it's really simple, Craig, as you're here with me, and I know you love Horror Nights because you go a lot. What
Hmm.
was your first Halloween Horror Nights? What year? What number was it? Can you remember?
Yes, I can remember. Just before we move on to that film, I'm a bit concerned because of your background and that cup is sitting in front of your background.
The
Hope
cup's there to stop it knocking me over.
I'm hoping that cup's empty.
So people, if you don't know me, I'm Epic Field Travels on YouTube also, and there was a live I did, and one of my studio effects fell down and smashed me on the head. What was hilarious at the time. There is a short on YouTube as well, so go and check it out. Epic Fields Travels. Anyway, I'm
Yeah,
all right. It's staying up.
you're okay. Fine. Good. Good.
Right. So what was
So
your first
first, yeah.
Halloween Horror Nights?
So first year that I actually went to Halloween Horror Nights would have been 26 HHN 26. So that would have been
Good
2016.
year. That's a bloody good
Yes.
year, that
Well,
one.
I mean, it took me a long time to go to one of the events because I remember I think the first time I saw, it kind of was on my radar was back in the one that was Carnival of Carnage. I think it
Yep.
was maybe 17, and that was kind of when it was Freddy, Leatherface, and Jason. And Jack was there as well, but Jack wasn't really kind of on my I didn't really kind of know
You
anything
didn't really
about
know.
Jack or any of the lore. It was just kind of mainly the kind of horror films, and I remember I was kind of used to go every year with my niece um on holiday to Orlando to do all the theme parks. And usually it was kind of summer holidays, but I think this year we'd gone in October, and I remember kind of seeing the all the merch for the Carnival Carnage and also kind of the advert. So it was always something I wanted to go to, um, but I didn't actually get to go until 26, and that was kind of what by that time my niece was older, she wasn't kind of coming on holiday, and I could really just do my own thing. So it was kind of so it was something I wanted to do, and then I kind of remember kind of leading up to the event, just trying to decide will I go, will I not go. I hadn't done any research, didn't know what to expect. I think I was only going for a week, and I was already doing like all the theme parks and stuff. So it was kind of sort of last minute. I decided, if I'm not going to go, if I'm going to go, this is the year to go, more or less. So I ended up getting sort of I think it was like a I think it was like buy one get one free time, kind of tickets. So it was only like 2 nights I was going to. But I thought, it was really, really cheap, and I thought, well, if I don't enjoy it, nothing lost. I've tried it, and that's it, kind of thing.
So
And that year,
26.
26, yeah.
That
So
was
that year, I mean,
chance, wasn't it?
yeah. But
Yeah.
again, that didn't really mean anything to me. Like I did the house,
Harley Quinn
um,
vibes.
Harley Quinn vibes, yeah. The sort of, I suppose the 3D house, the infamous 3D house.
I think
But
that was the
in
last
terms of
one.
yeah, in terms of kind of, the kind of original kind of side of HHN, I wasn't listening to any of the podcasts about time before I went. I hadn't done any research. It was really the IPs, well, I mean, now I know to call them IPs, but at that point it was just like, I like the films that they're doing this year. So we
Okay,
were
can
doing
you
like
remember what films it was?
yeah, we were doing a Halloween house. I think it was based on Halloween 2. And then we
That's where
had
Shrek was.
yeah, and then we had
Shrek 3.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
So I think that was in one of the tents. And then we had, for me, the other one was The Exorcist, because it was kind of
Oh,
films that had, like seen,
was it?
Exorcist.
What? I can't remember. I
Yeah,
always get my years mixed
yeah,
up. When was
yeah.
Poltergeist? Because I remember that one, but I always get them two mixed
28.
up.
Poltergeist was
Yeah,
28.
another
Yeah.
great one that was.
Yes. I mean, that year we also did like we had a Walking Dead house, we had American Horror Story. I never ever got into Walking Dead, so it didn't mean anything to me. I've seen American Horror Story, but I've watched them since I've been in the house.
Oh,
It's kind of
and they get progressively worse through the series,
yeah,
Andrew.
yeah. But I mean, at that time again, now kind of listening to the podcast, kind of knowing about HHN, doing like you definitely do get more out of the houses if you do that wee bit of kind of homework and you watch kind of any films, any sort of TV series that the houses are going to be based on, because they do such a fantastic job of kind of recreating kind of some of the main scenes. But at that time I hadn't seen either of the series, so it was mainly the kind of three big kind of movie IPs that kind of was the draw for me. Didn't know anything about kind of the originals. Didn't I wasn't on the website doing any sort of research. It was mainly just if I'm going to go, this is a year to go because there's some kind of films that I would like to see kind of recreated as haunted houses. So that's kind of what decided it in the end, for the first time. Scare zone wise, I mean, I think yeah, I think the more you
Can
go,
you remember
the
the
more.
scare zones?
Well, I can only kind of really remember the Dead Man's Wharf one. When you had sort of the dead fishermen and kind of walking about San Francisco
You
area.
say, yeah, again, I think 28 was Killer Clowns, wasn't it?
28 was Killer Clowns, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
28
See,
was Killer
that was such a
Clowns.
good year. I loved that year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, when as you can, because I've kind of, apart from kind of, 30, when obviously we weren't able to kind of fly across for it. I mean, I've been to every other, year since 26. And I think, the more you, like, especially the first few times, the more you go, the more you start to kind of find out about the other parts, the scare zones, the
Okay,
originals.
before we get to all that
Yeah,
stuff, though, can you remember what the atmosphere felt like for you when you first walked in that first night at Halloween Horror Nights, mate? So let's not get too far ahead. Let's take our time.
yeah,
We were trying
yeah.
to remember in the first Halloween Horror Nights. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I suppose it was just a case of the size of it was more than anything else. Kind of it's what kind of I hadn't anticipated. Having gone to the theme parks, it's busy in the theme parks, but it's a different type of business when everybody's up kind of on the streets to kind of in the scare zones. Um, a different type of crowd, So I think it was just the sheer size of it all, which kind of blew me away the first time. As I said, I didn't do the research, so kind of turned up really just thinking about the houses, but it was everything else that goes along with the event. That kind of, that was probably, made the biggest impression, because it was just like I didn't expect it to be on that scale.
Yeah,
And
I
I
fully
suppose
get that.
it's yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of you kind of go along and you've got a bit of an idea of what you're going to see, but obviously, like during the day, it's all kind of covered up. It's just it's the theming, it's the kind of the atmosphere, the kind of the effects. It's kind of
So
everything,
the
isn't it?
question
Really?
is, your first time, did you go in
Yeah.
daylight or did you wait until it was dark?
I waited
Can you
until it
remember
was
that?
dark. I mean,
Yeah, see, that's
again,
good.
like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's good, but again, like, things like, the stay and scream and stuff. I hadn't done any of the research. So as I say, I was there for kind of 2 nights, and kind of my goal really was just to get around all to sort of all the houses. I mean, I can't remember how many there were, but were there 8 or 9? I can't remember. We had the kind of paid one as well that year. The repository, the sort of simulator kind of one. I didn't kind of go into that one. I think that was like a paid attraction, but it was really
Yes,
just,
it
I think it
was.
was either 8 or 9 houses. That was really just my goal, is to get, over the 2 nights, get around all the houses. Um, so yeah, so again,
Yes.
yeah,
So I was just thinking, did anything generally scare you, like you were completely caught off guard, maybe walking through the scare zones, because you wouldn't have known about them, would you?
no, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I think even when you do know, you still get the odd jump scare. When you're walking through the scare zone, especially if you're kind of, you're solo, you're just kind of focusing ahead of you, and you turn around and there's a scare actor been walking along the road behind you for the last, like, 100 yards, and you just get, the kind of shock, or you're coming, you're just walking past, and yeah, you know, you. You can obviously, if you kind of stay to the side, they will generally kind of just give, let you just walk through, but you don't know that when you're there first time. You're just walking in the middle of
Yeah,
the road,
totally
so
agree.
they're coming at
So
you
when
left,
you
right, and centre
walked,
sometimes. Yeah,
so when you walked to your first ever house, were you like terrified walking into the house? Would you like laughing? What was your
excited.
feelings?
Well, excited really. I mean, I love horror films anyway, so I was kind of more or less kind of bring it on. I, I mean, I would have been kind of one of the kind of the three that kind of was drawing me in. It would have went probably Exorcist, because I think that was kind of probably would have been the first one I would have came across. That probably would have been my first house. I mean, Exorcist has always been a funny one
It's
for me,
not.
because yeah,
The films ain't scary.
well, I can't. I'm fine with, like, the slashers and the serial killers. It
Yeah.
is the ones that's got like the sort of devil and the kind of supernatural that's the scarier ones for me. So probably that was a bit of an uneasiness going into the house. But
So going into the
yeah.
house then, how did you handle the jump scares? Were you laughing, screaming, both?
I think it was probably just kind of, I think it was more kind of just kind of sheer excitement. I probably would have been laughing, knowing kind of what I would probably been like. I would have probably tipped him into laughter rather than actually kind of freaking out or anything like that. But I think it was just kind of, obviously Exodus again was a, different house, because it was this same room you were kind of repeating multiple times with different things
Yeah.
going on. So it was a bit of a different house. But I think, it probably would have been laughter, and no doubt there would have been a few people as well that, because you see it, you see everything when you're going through a house at HHN.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get the scare, like somebody in front of you gets the scare, or you have people falling to the floor. You have people kind of not wanting to go through the house, so you're getting all of that, even if it's not particularly scaring you. So it's just more of a kind of thrill experience, I think, probably would have been for myself. I mean, it would have been a couple of kind of scares, because again, the way that the layout of the house, they know that, even the people that aren't going to be freaked out, how to put on a jump scare. So you kind of go in the room, and there's kind of multiple people in the room, or you go in the room and there's people kind of hidden away. So yeah, there would have been the odd sort of jump scare, because I
So
wouldn't have. I didn't watch any POVs or anything like that. Any past houses. I kind of just turned up kind of blind.
there
So
wasn't
I'm sure.
really that many back then either. So
Yeah,
was you
I'm sure it
shocked
would
by
have
the
had a few
people who
jumps.
got, did you how did you react to the people when, because me, I was shocked when I
Laugh.
saw people, no, not the characters, people in
Uh-huh.
the lines who were conquering through, and they would literally fall to the floor screaming,
Yeah,
so scared.
I would have been
I
laughing. I
can't put
would
it
have
in my
been.
head. Yeah, but
I
I
would have been
can't put it in my
shocked. I
head
would
how
have
they're
probably just
so
been laughing.
scared. As soon as I
Sometimes
know it's
that's.
someone acting, it's just not
I
going to
know.
get me. I go to appreciate the housing. I think the scare actors do a fantastic job. But I want to be scared, but I think every year there might be one jump scare that gets me at some point, but I generally don't get scared, and I hate being wired that way. But I love
Yeah,
watching other people's reactions in the house, especially the ones who absolutely shit it. I just
yeah,
fall into hysterics. They're literally lying on the floor, or they're sprinting like Usain Bolt through the house to get past everyone. Them people, I
yeah.
wish I could have a scare like them.
I know. I mean, I would probably say, first time I go through that through. There's always a house every year where there's jump scares. like Insidious last year, the kind of pinball kind of scare, through the house. There's always one that kind of gets you, the ones where there's like you go into a room and there's kind of multiple kind of, like dummies or people with kind of blankets over, and one of them's going to be a scare actor. There's always one of them that will get me because you cannot react. You can't stop yourself from reacting. Like I sometimes like I'll go through with my hands in my pocket just in case. But it's but yeah, that always gets me like one of these ones. But like obviously once you've been through it, a few times, you kind of know what to expect, and you're probably less scared. But yeah, I mean, I love it when when you do go in and there is somebody that's just maybe a couple in front of you. It is like the person that's kind of falls to the floor, or they're stopping and then they're running and then they're stopping again, and because that the scare actors in the house are going to target that person, so
Oh
you're going to get
yes.
this secondary benefit of everybody's all the scare actors are going to be switched on when you're going through because they know that we've got kind of a easy target here. So yeah, that is great when you get one of them. It's sometimes it's much fun. It's as you say, it's like you're appreciating the house, but you're getting the scares, or you're kind of watching somebody else being scared, which sometimes is just as good as getting the scare yourself. So yeah, so that's probably I think
All right.
Exorcist would have been probably my first one, and yeah, it was probably more just a sense of kind of here I am, and as I say, it's always one of these films for me that's always been, I've been a bit more uneasy, and you kind of know exorcisms happen in real life, and I always think if it's a serial killer or a slasher, you can just go in somewhere and lock the door, they're not going
Hey,
to get
mate,
to
mate,
you,
mate.
but yeah.
I hate to tell you this, but serial killers and that are real as well. But anyway,
Oh, yeah,
do
I
you have
know.
a favorite? So over the 2 nights, I'm going to do it over the two
Yeah.
nights. Do you have your favorite memory or standout moment from them nights? Can you remember something what sticks in your mind more than anything else for them?
Um, Well, I remember like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the noise of the chainsaws in the house, the sort of dust and the sort of chainsaws, and there was kind of bits of kind of light kind of coming through, but you couldn't kind of make out what was in the house. That was probably one just because, I think for that one, they kind of did the atmosphere, I mean, the house itself was fantastic, but the atmosphere, the sound, the kind of, the smells, the sort of dust, probably that was kind of that was kind of everything kind of at once, just kind of going through that house. And I think that was probably one where there were quite a few people that were a bit uneasy going through it. So it was, it was just it was a great experience. I mean, I think, the Halloween would have been a good one because that's always been like the first Halloween's always been my favorite ever horror film. So actually getting to go through and, Michael Myers being in a house, that would have been, kind of a strong memory as well. But yeah, that's probably kind of the main bits I would remember. I think as well when you're kind of when you're only going in a couple of nights, it's kind of it can be difficult as well because sometimes what might have been good houses, as if you don't get the scares or if there's a sort of change of the cast and you're in between, sometimes you're not getting to appreciate the house. And I think, especially that kind of first year and the first couple when it only went a couple of nights, there probably was good originals that I didn't probably get the full chance to
Yeah, I
appreciate.
suppose, yeah, the first couple of
Yeah.
years as well, you wouldn't have known about things like the fear passes, would you?
No, I mean, I started to find out more when I started listening to the podcast. So probably somewhere in between, around about 27 or maybe just after 27, when I started listening to all the sort of Universal After Dark and kind of and it was kind of Boston hosting it, and everybody was talking about kind of their experiences, and I think what started to hook me into it as well because you then kind of you find out the kind of HHN's not just like a something that you do in September and October. It becomes like a year-long event because you're speculating, you're looking forward, you're trying to guess kind of what's houses are
Looking
we
for
going to do next
hints.
year, looking for hints. You start to kind of know what almost how the creators are going to kind of, what would make a good house, what would, what could they do, what have they done in the past, what can they, so you kind of start, it becomes a year long kind of, event to you're looking forward to it. You're looking for that, as kind of, because, obviously like, we know each other kind of on the kind of, off the kind of podcast and stuff, but we obviously kind of message each other as well. And even that little wee speculation that comes in, you think, well, is that mean are we reading too much into that? Does that mean this is probably going to be one of the houses this year? So it becomes kind of more than just kind of going along there. It's the whole lot that goes with it. But yeah, that first couple of years before I kind of really knew the ticket options, and it was only kind of going. So I did 26, 27, just a couple of nights each time. And I probably that's probably a disadvantage because you're basically kind of hoping that you're getting a good run, and you're maybe only doing the originals once rather than kind
In
of
all fairness, though, I would
multiple
have said
times.
26, 27 was probably the end and the real big start of the international crowd getting to know Horror Nights. So it's
Yeah,
always been massive with all the American. But I feel like I
yeah,
know there's British people out there who knew it beforehand, but I feel like
yeah.
a lot of British and Europeans and that started to cotton on to this event then. And I would have said 28 onwards,
28,
it did
yeah. I
get
mean, 20,
it did get harder to do the houses, even if you had two
yeah.
nights. It would have been
That's why.
possible maybe
That's
to do
yeah,
them all.
yeah, yeah. I mean, 27 like had Shining, and we had American Horror Story again. We had oh, Dead Waters was probably my first kind of where I really appreciated an original. That was the kind of voodoo kind of one. It was kind of you
Yeah.
were kind of walking through, and it was kind of swampy and stuff. So yeah, that was probably first best original that of the early years that I kind of started to appreciate the kind of originals. Probably 27 is when I probably started to appreciate the scare zones a bit more as well, because you had 27, you had like Trick or Treat was kind of a scare zone that year. The Purge was a scare zone, kind of for the Purge. So you're starting to kind of Invasion, I think, was there as well, which is like the UFO kind of spaceship. So you were kind of starting to kind of
Don't
appreciate. Well,
don't.
I was starting to.
I didn't go
You didn't
27,
do
and
27.
that scare zone, the alien one, looked so good, and I
Yeah,
so wanted to do it.
yeah,
It did my.
yeah.
I'm not sure now
I
if
mean, I did
26. No, I'm
quite a
starting
few.
to wonder.
Like Purge was good as
Did
well.
so? When was Killer Clown's house? Was that 29 then?
Killer Clown's house was 29. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Killer Clowns was the scare
because
zone
we
in
got the scare
28.
zone. Right, so
Yeah, yeah. So
I'm going to double
Trick or
barrel a
Treat,
question.
Trick or Treat became a house in 28.
Yeah. So I've got a
Um,
double barrel question for you here.
mhm.
Um, did you, well, obviously, did your first experience get you hooked to HHN? And have you been back since?
Oh,
Did you visit? How did your later
yeah. I
visits
think
compare to
yeah,
the first one? So 26 to 27. Now,
yeah,
I think 28 and 29, we started
yeah,
to really hit a pinnacle and then it's gone downhill since then.
yeah.
But what was it like 27 compared to 26? Which one did you prefer?
Um, Probably 27, because I think 27, the scare zones, because obviously, like when you're just doing the single nights, you're just doing the standard tickets. There's limited to how many houses you can get through. But having the chance to kind of spend time in the scare zones, because you got to a point where you maybe had to have a break from the lines, and the scare zones were kind of so you're talking about kind of three quite good scare zones, like Trick or Treat I think was kind of scare zone of the year potentially. The Purge had kind of the little show that was kind of going on within the scare zone, and then you had the Invasion one. So I think probably enjoyed that one more, and Shining probably is kind of up there in terms of like one of my favorite films ever. So I probably would have said 27 over
So, did you do
26.
the Bill and Ted show?
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think of it? Not my kind of comedy. I thought it was
No, not my
more
comedy. I
slapstick,
think
childish
a
comedy.
lot of
I
American,
think,
a lot of it
yeah, it's
in-house
American
American
comedy.
jokes. Yeah, so yeah, like politics and stuff, and yeah, music and stuff. But yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
it was all right. But yeah, I mean, I think I probably did it once or something like that. It wouldn't be something I would have done more than once.
So here's an
Um,
interesting one.
yeah.
If you could go back and relive your first night at Halloween Horror Nights,
Mhm.
would you? First ever night.
Yeah, I would definitely go back and relive it. I think, as I say, I would do it kind of knowing more about like ticket options, knowing about Stay and Scream to get more out of it. Because I mean, 26 and 27, as you say, probably it started to kind of peak at 28 in terms of the kind of size. That was kind of Stranger Things kind of first year in terms of the size. Because like that year, I had Rush of Fear that year, so I was determined to get into more houses, but it wasn't with Express. So like the Stranger Things lines were like 2 hours sometimes. So, but I think that first year, if I was to repeat it, I would use like Stay and Scream because I had the park tickets, so it wouldn't have been an issue. We'd have done Stay and Scream at least. I probably would have looked to have. I was only there a week that year, but probably would have looked to get whatever. I can't remember if it was September or October, a Rush of Fear or kind of one of the kind of other kind of multi-night tickets because I think probably that was probably the thing that. I mean, I think that's probably going to be one of your questions about what do you regret. Well, that probably is kind of one of the things I regret
Actually,
is,
I didn't even think about regrets, but that is
did you not?
brilliant. Nah, that's a good.
That would
That
have
is
been
actually a good question.
one of my regrets, the fact that it couldn't have gone more nights because I did get around all the houses, both of 26 and 27, but some of the houses, like especially originals, I would have only gone through once. And I just think, as I say, sometimes you don't quite catch the house, showing off its best. So just having another opportunity to go through some of the houses. I mean, I did, was it 26 was the Scarecrow one? And I know a lot of people kind of rave about the Scarecrow house. But I don't have any memory of it. I just remember kind of going through and not really being scared. And that probably was a cast change thing. So yeah, that would have been my regret, but I hadn't kind of done a bit more homework and thought through how much do I want to get out of the event. And that probably is what kind of then led me into getting the kind of rush of fear for 28. Just thinking and I want to have more, go through more houses. Not quite fully appreciating that was probably, as you say, kind of the start of the kind of peak years when a lot of kind of newbies were probably drawn into the event from kind of Stranger Things. So yeah, but yeah, that's kind of probably the regret. It's just like I probably should have been able to kind of get through more houses if I had picked the right ticket
Right.
option.
So I've got something here for you. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it the way ChatGPT did because I don't like the question. So what ChatGPT says is, what would you tell someone who's never been to HHN about the first time? But you tell them to listen to this episode. But what would you tell someone if they were thinking going for their very first time to Halloween Horror Nights? What tips, hints, and your opinion on it would you give someone?
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about it, first thing I would say is definitely do it. I mean, if it's something you've always thought, I don't know if I like it or not, do it because especially now, the event's so big now. You can go there. You can spend, have a great time. If you want to maybe just try it the first year, go for a couple of nights. You can have a great time not going in the houses. You have, not going, not spending much time in the scare zone. There's so many food options now, so many drinks that you can try and see if you like them or not. But yeah, there's options for you. We've got a few rides on, totally different experience. Going to the park at that time of night, when it's because Universal kind of closes their park fairly early, so a lot of the time it is sort of daylight, but getting a chance to go in some of the rides at night. Although, Rip Rides is obviously kind of closing, so that's going to take, one of the better experiences off of the table. But I would say definitely go for it. If you want to, if your draw is to do some houses, kind of think about kind of whether, if you're there for an extended period, um, you know, you might want to try it your first time, but if you're determined you want to, to have a chance to go through as many houses as possible, think about the Rush of Fear ticket. So that's usually kind of a good option. If you want to kind of if you're going to start of September, you want to go kind of multiple nights. You maybe don't want to spend your whole night there. You just want to kind of come in for a couple of hours and then maybe go and do something else. Think about the multi-night tickets because they are still good value. Um,
Oh, they're
I
great
would
value, they are,
good
especially the
value.
rush.
Yeah,
If you're going
yeah,
September, the rush of fear is
yeah,
gold. If you go at the right time of September, now it's beginning
yeah,
of September, and the last week of September's not on it. So what I like telling people as well is get into the communities of Halloween Horror
yeah.
Nights. If you do love it, you will make
Even
friends.
if you don't,
And
yeah. Yeah, sorry. Even if you don't, even if you're not ready for that, even listening to the Universal podcasts, because
yeah, the little
the last
stories and
few
that as
years
well.
they start to give you the background. So especially the originals, you definitely get more out if you kind of understand the kind of concept that we're trying to put across.
Also,
So
go
even
on
if you're,
YouTube, look at some
yeah,
people's vlogs, and then
yeah,
you can see
yeah,
what it's like. And if you want to go,
subscribe
what
to
I
the
like as well is what us
HHC
lot do.
podcast.
Yeah,
Subscribe
so
to the HHC podcast.
Yeah, or Epic Phil's Travels.
Epic, yeah, yep, yep.
Simon, I'm
there's
going
lots of
mental
people.
now.
I mean, yeah, definitely would say give it a go. I mean, that's what I did the first year. I was kind of, it was kind of, will I, won't I? I mean, it might be that you're only going to be going there. I'm kind of quite fortunate. I make a point of going across every year. But I know a lot of people, affordability, especially if it's a kind of larger family, you might only be going there once every few years. So I would kind of say just embrace it. If there's especially if there's maybe an IP that you're in, a movie or a TV series that we're doing as a house that it's one of your favorites because it is kind of some of it's kind of Hollywood quality kind of house. You're going into
Yeah,
kind of actual
and
scenes
you
from
also
movies.
have to tell people every house changes every year. So don't
Mhm.
think that house is back next year. What I like doing as well, mate, is when loads of us meet up and just have a drink.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I
such a
think
great
that's
atmosphere.
yeah. I mean, I think last year probably one of my favorite years. I mean, houses weren't the best as we know. I mean, I know, like we were saying earlier on, 28, 29 probably peak years, but I really enjoyed 32. Probably my favourite house of all times, 32, in Halloween Horror Nights 32, Blood Moon Dark Offerings. That's an original, but again, it was just perfect, So yeah, don't.
All right, Craig.
uh,
We're gonna end it very quickly
Okay.
in a
hmm
very, very short sentence. I know it's hard for you. You love to chat. What makes my job easier, by the way. In a very short sentence, just say how you felt about Halloween Horror Nights the first time you went.
Honestly, the biggest thing I could say, first time I went, why did I not go there before? Why did I wait to HHN 26 before I started going to Halloween Horror Nights? That's
Fair
probably how
enough.
I could sum it up. hmm
Fair enough. Well, Craig, thank you for being on the pilot episode. Hope you people at home have enjoyed it. Yet again, if we want anybody on, whoever you are, if you're a podcaster or a YouTuber, a bread maker, a bin man, I don't care. If you're just a fan of Halloween Horror Nights and want to come on and talk about your very first Halloween Horror Nights event, you can get hold of us on X, what is Twitter, obviously, Instagram, or a Facebook like page at HHE Pod. You can also check out our stuff where we do shorts now on TikTok, what is at HHE Pod 1. Now, if you're listening to this on a podcast app, please give us a great review. I can never say review properly. Bit of a Jonathan Watts. And obviously share us to your friends. And on YouTube, give the video a like, subscribe, and comment on the YouTube videos as well. We love doing this. Horror Nights is brilliant. I hope people enjoy this type of show. I think it's great to hear people's memories about their first time at Halloween Horror Nights. Yet again, Craig, thank you very much. Is there any way you would like anybody to follow you on any social networks or anything, or you don't really care?
No, I'm not famous enough to be followed. I lurk in the shadows.
Okay, and if you're a Doctor Who fan, though, if you ever find Craig, he will
If it
talk to your
comes
ear
back,
about
yes.
it.
If you see the universe pod getting pushed again, then yeah, we might be back in business. You never know.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening to this first episode, the pilot episode of I Remember My First Halloween Horror Nights. I'm your host, Phil. He's Craig. Senior nightmares and stay epic.